Why I Survived, written by Jennifer Lee, narrated by Jennifer Lee. This book is dedicated to what is inside you: resilience, strength, courage, hope, perseverance, and love. Prologue. My hand was on the refrigerator door, getting ready to pull it open when I heard this fierce inner voice say, "It's time to share your story." But I never talked about the robbery and abduction outside of court before. People knew it occurred. After all, it was big news in the local paper. But it wasn't a topic others brought up. Yet at the moment, the thought of sharing my story lit a fire inside me that could have melted every piece of ice in the freezer. Story 1. As you read my story, you will see the abuse I endured was not physical, but rather mental and emotional. It was slow and subtle. Not all trauma is associated with a violent crime. This has been my secret until now. For the first time, I am ready to share my story of surviving an abusive relationship. Story 2. My story of surviving an armed robbery and abduction is familiar to most, and the topic I share when asked to guest speak at different venues. Story 3. Early in 2022, someone forced themselves into my space. I felt the imminent feeling of fear, just like I had experienced with the robbery. Listening to my gut and being aware of my surroundings led me to focus on situational awareness. Story 4. This is an inspirational story where I learned the difference between our intentions and our purpose, and how overcoming fear can allow you to help others. I'm excited to share this story with you. This book is for those looking to be validated and to understand it is okay to share their truth. It is a resource to provide tools that could help someone in their healing process. This book is not for those to judge or question anyone's experience, emotions, or reactions. The content is not for everyone, and that is okay. Trigger warning. Please note, this book contains stories that feature graphic themes, including but not limited to violence, abuse, and terror, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Some topics may be triggering. Please seek help if needed. Remember, you always come first. Story 1. Dating abuse is slow and subtle. August 2003. Like most weekdays, this day had been a long one, selling cars. Being a car salesperson was an interesting job, working most weekends and being part of the infamous group of people standing on point, waiting for the next car-buying victim. I left my retail position thinking commission was a better gig, but for me, it wasn't. I was poor and barely able to pay rent. While I could demonstrate our brand, the trick with selling cars was to understand all brands. I lacked the general passion for cars that would motivate someone to want to learn about them. As the months went on, it was evident I was going to have to figure out another way to pay my bills. One obvious solution was to get a roommate. Thankfully, the front office at my apartment complex found one for me, a woman named Kim. So life was looking up for me. A good job and a new roommate on the way, all providing me the ability to pay my bills. It was at this great feeling moment when Rob entered my world. I was in a bar of a Mexican restaurant having a margarita with a friend when a man walked in. The restaurant was dimly lit, and the smell of homemade chips and spicy salsa was floating in the air. Even in this lighting, though, I could tell he was dressed in a nice suit and didn't appear to belong there. He was different, and I found that intriguing. I looked at my friend Joe and said, "I think I need to say hi to him." So I, with my ultra confident personality, walked over to this man and introduced myself. We talked for a couple of minutes. Then I returned to Joe and filled him in on all the details. This man's name was Rob. He was in town on business, lived in New Jersey, worked in New York, didn't have kids, and wasn't married. After Joe and I finished our drinks, we headed our separate ways. On the way out, I walked over to Rob to say goodbye and thank him for the conversation. I wished him safe travels back home and left the restaurant knowing I'd never see him again. The next day, I took a break during a slow spell at work and left with one of my coworkers to look at furniture for her new apartment. When I got back, my colleagues told me a guy named Rob had stopped by saying he wanted to say goodbye. He'd left his phone number. I was flattered and surprised. Apparently, I'd made a positive impression on him. Since he'd gone out of his way to find me, I thought the least I could do was call and say thank you. I left a message thanking him for stopping by and that I was sorry I'd missed him. I was sure he had gone back to the hustle and bustle of his big city life, and I continued to live my weekends at the dealership. I lasted a few more months, then left the car business and headed back to retail. October 2003. 2 months later, Rob called and told me he would be in town for his birthday at the end of December, and he wanted to spend it with me. Once again, I found myself flattered, and I readily accepted his invitation. November 2003. By November, Rob and I started to have daily phone calls, often multiple calls a day. Many of them began with, "You are my sunshine, and I just needed to hear your voice." Or something equally romantic. I found him dreamy. He would ask me about my day, and I would always explain in detail. It was great, I made my store sales goal, or there was a crazy customer today, or someone tried to return a visibly used item. He would ask me what I was doing, and sometimes my answer was, "I'm going out with my friends for a drink or dinner." Rob would ask, "Which friend? Have you known them long? Where are you going? Text me when you get home." By then, he'd become part of my world, so sharing my day seemed normal. I would ask him about his day, and it was generally the same answer: stressful. He kept busy in the evenings. Between karate, playing cards, and hanging out with his friends, he couldn't talk most nights. I was in retail management, so I often worked early and stayed late. December 2003. I was working as an assistant manager for a body lotion store, and the holidays were upon us. We sold lotions, massage oils, candles, kitchen soap, and a new line of men's items. The holidays were always buzzing with new products and exciting energy. But I also had other reasons for feeling this excitement energy. Rob would be arriving soon.